Wow.
All right, today is the day that we get really medieval with Chris's truck. We're gonna take sawzalls and angle grinders, and we're gonna cut off a lot of different frame parts off the front and the rear of the truck. Let me show you what some of those parts are. We're gonna cut off this front cross member. We're gonna cut off the cross member behind it. We're gonna cut off the shock tower on each side. And then now let's go to the rear and we'll show you some other things we're gonna cut off. In the rear, we're gonna be cutting off these coil and shock tower frame mounts. We're gonna be cutting off these control arm tabs on this cross member. Chris is gonna cut off this cross member for the panhard bar because 4Wheel Underground does have a custom cross member that Chris has decided to go with. On the outsides of the frame, we have these mounts here that we're gonna be cutting off on each side. And finally, we're gonna be cutting off these rear control arm frame mounts and these mounts for the rear sway bar end links. And that should be everything we're cutting off of the frame for this project. Here's the pile of parts that we cut off the frame today, quite a bit, and about 2 pounds of metal dust from sanding and grinding. So here's the finished result of cutting off everything on the front. Remember, you have the coil over shock tower right here, 2 cross members going across that were cut out. Looks a lot different. Give you a shot from underneath here. It's all opened up now. Without those cross members, would that weaken the structure of the frame?
So that's why you put frame plates, I think, along the frame. And then this is going to be 3/16. I mean, I guess it is already pretty thick. But this is going to be square box tubing right here.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a nice solid cross member in the front.
Yeah, I guess if you have a really beefy cross member in the front, then that will help support it.
Yeah.
In the upcoming footage, you're gonna watch Chris and I remove the fuel tank. It gets in the way of cutting out the coil and shock tower on the driver's side and cutting out the upper control arm mount that mounts to that circular cross member. And because Chris is choosing to use a plasma cutter to cut off the parts on the rear of the vehicle, it's not exactly a good idea to have a fuel source right next to where you're using a plasma cutter. Chris and I are working on getting the fuel tank out. We already removed the skid plate. He has an aftermarket little skid plate. There's 3 lines right next to the transfer case that we disconnected. There's this line right here that we disconnected, and it's just an easy clamp that you can squeeze with your hands and pull it off. And then you have this line that we used a couple flare nut wrenches, a 19 and a 14, to disconnect there. And then this 3rd line, so we wouldn't mix up the hoses, we decided to disconnect it on the other side. And we disconnected it right here on the passenger side of the tank. We disconnected the fuel hose from the tank. We went underneath the driver rear seat and we disconnected an electrical connection to the top of the tank through this access hole. We are gonna disconnect a pin right here that holds this strap at the back of the tank. And then there's another 12mm bolt right there. And then when we take that out, in the strap pin, we'll be able to lower this, and we're gonna try to bench press this out, not use a jack. I think I'm gonna put him on the side where the fuel comes out.
The heavy side? Or the wet side?
Yeah, the wet side. Unless you want to put some type of like bag over it. You want
Over these?
No, a bag over the main fill thing, so if it starts to tilt, it doesn't spill fuel over.
Well, it has a check valve in it.
It does?
Yeah, there's like a little flapper in there.
Okay.
Prevents fuel from
All right,
going out.
we're gonna go for it. You holding the tank?
A little bit.
This thing's got a lot of weight in it.
Does it?
Yes.
Okay, hold it.
It's got quite a bit of weight.
Okay, here we go. Ooh, there is one more hose. I don't have the fucking pliers. You got it for 1 sec? I'm gonna have to leave you. Here, I got this actually.
Yeah, I forgot that hose.
There we go. Alright.
Oh, shit. You got that sight?
Yep. I got the whole thing. Yeah, this thing had a little bit more than I thought it did. Woo! Alright, you guys. Another day. We're gonna try to cut some of the rear frame stuff off today. Gonna try using this plasma cutter for the first time. A little something. Did something. I think I was going a little too fast, maybe. Let's try again. Sway bar brackets are next. Hot. What a beautiful thing. That actually worked pretty dang good. Oh, yeah, baby. Wow, even better. Broke off from the original weld. There's your coil bucket power though. Ow. Glad to say we're done with the plasma cutter. Now I just got a shit ton of fucking grinding to do. Fun times. Man, it looks freaking open back here though, I'll tell you what. And back to the scheduled programming of grinding. Got a lot of grinding to do.
All right, Chris, what do we have here?
This is pretty much all the brackets and mounts that you are going to be cutting off if you're doing a similar job to this.
So we got cross members, we've got shock towers, we've got all kinds of crap. Some of this is from the axles you bought though, right?
Yeah, just a couple like bits from the rear axle.
That's the IMKey reinforcement.
Those are really fun to cut off.
Oh my God. So you'll end up with a whole bunch of metal to take to the recycling plant. Those are the rear shock tower and spring bucket.
Yep.
Oh, a lot of work.
Kind of funny actually, how you were talking about how it was like a weak weld right there. I ended up just bending it back and forth a lot, and I didn't have to cut this. I was just able to kind of break it
So
off.
that confirms it, that weld on that round cross member is bad.
Yep. And I was on both of them too, not just one of them.
Yep. Let me show you what the rear of the truck looks like now that Chris is done using the Milwaukee angle grinder and die grinder with grinding discs and sanding discs to clean up the frame rails on both sides, and after he got done protecting the paint with some primer. Right up in here, in this area is where you'd have your coil and shock tower, and what we were talking about with those pieces that were cut off, the weld right here is pretty weak, and on my truck when we were installing the Solo Motorsports outboard shock kit, what we discovered is this weld broke, and then it was putting a big strain on the welds over here, and my coil and shock tower was basically breaking apart from this part, and it was just all ripping apart my frame. So Tanner at KP Off-Road fixed that up for me, but it was a huge mess. And then you can see the other side, that coil and shock tower is cut out. The Panhard cross member has been cut out. What else?
Bump stop mounts.
What about wasn't there a cross member for the
spare tire?
Spare
I
tire.
did that one a long time ago, but yeah, I did cut that one out too.
There normally is a spare tire cross member that's been cut out. Looks a lot different. The lower control arm mounts right there, huh? Those were cut off on both sides. Oh yeah, kind of cut into the frame there. A little weld will fix that up. I know of a good welder. His name's Timmy the Toolman. He'll put some booger welds on that, no problem. All right, this concludes episode 3 of this 4-wheel underground solid axle swap project on a 3rd generation 4Runner. What you need to know about the cutting of all the parts off the frame is it is very time and labor intensive. The video doesn't really do it justice because I knew you as the audience would get bored watching hours of cutting and grinding and sanding. So I sped up the footage like dramatically, like 20 times in a lot of the footage, and then I cut a lot of it out because it's very redundant. But you just have to know you're going to be spending a lot of time with reciprocating saws like the Milwaukee hacksaw, and angle grinders and die grinders, and maybe even a plasma cutter if you have one or you're going to invest in one. Like I mentioned in the video, angle grinders and reciprocating saws like the Milwaukee hacksaw are very, very battery hungry. So it's best that you have a good battery charger that charges the batteries fast, and you have an ample amount of batteries so you can keep working and not have delays. When we were filming this, I was using DeWalt tools at the time because that's what I had. And then Chris had a Milwaukee angle grinder and a nice M18 hacksaw. And what I was noticing is I was burning through my DeWalt batteries really quick, and the Milwaukee batteries were lasting longer. But even though the Milwaukee batteries were lasting longer, we didn't have enough to keep working. So we had to take breaks and do other stuff to stay busy while we were waiting for batteries to charge. After doing all that work on the frame, I hit up Milwaukee and they sent me a nice M18 supercharger, which charges the M18 batteries really fast. And they sent me a bunch of 8 amp hour batteries that last a super long time. So now I'm never gonna run out of M18 batteries when I'm doing this sort of work where it's very battery hungry. So do yourself a favor, get yourself some type of fast charger for the type of cordless equipment you're going to be using, or maybe you use tools that aren't cordless, they just have an electrical cord, and then you don't have to worry about the batteries. But it seems these days most people are using cordless tools rather than using old school corded tools. In the next episode, we are going to focus on everything we needed to do for the front axle. We're going to show you all the stuff we are cutting off the Ford 1-ton axle, and then showing you all of the trusses that we are going to weld on to reinforce that front axle. It's a lot of work, so that's why we're going to have a dedicated episode just to the front axle work. So we will see you back in episode 4. Peace out, happy wrenching, happy solid axle swapping. Bye-bye.